He's connecting to.
I think with regard to
Mhm.
placing children in shelter, I think Tashi will be.
Okay. But also, I also wanted to ask about the alternative care
Yeah.
thing. So I'll go first with the alternative care then. For the thing, because alternative to shelters, does Bhutan have other like alternative care for children?
Uh, Basically, like in shelter, we have not placed much lah.
Mm-hmm.
But we have placed in other families lah. Any alternative care gidi, like foster care and kingship care. So I cannot hear anything. Lotte Tashidi, what happened?
Mm. Oh, it says he's connecting to audio. I think he can leave and rejoin. I don't think he was able to connect to the audio.
I cannot hear anything. 저 잠깐만요. 그래 earphone 지. 지가 배워 되고. Kim kap din itu. Kim itu ada develop kan last time cik mau. Om itu sih. My office na disno sus. Kayak bandar lah.
네, 여기지.
Kata. Ani mah round ni.
지금 아직 녹음 중이라 하는지 모르겠어요.
My office na sus. Iya yang Cina. Ini bersih siapa?
Gelmiş. Kayıp. Yaşlı mı?
Protection Act, there are requirements of shelter homes for the children in difficult circumstances. However, like you said, we have only Kawaling Shelter Home and Najin Namtin. So children who are in difficult circumstances, they are placed in Kawaling Shelter Home. And children who are in conflict with the law are in Najin Namtin, basically. But if we go by the alternative care as per the child care and protection rules and regulations, chapter 10 basically talks about the alternative care lah.
Oh, okay.
So there we have two kinds of alternative care, the foster and the kingship care.
Okay.
So from NCWC, when we come to know that there are children who are in difficult circumstances or children who are being abandoned. So in such cases, basically there are applicants who come forward to take care of those children.
Oh, okay.
So as per the applications, or we also have this prospective parents list maintained in NCWC.
Okay.
So whenever we come across such children, then we call up the applicants and then ask them to come to office and then do the assessment whether they are eligible to look after the children or whether they are interested in looking after the child.
Okay.
So that is the first stage, basically. So if they are interested and if they meet the standards that are being given in the alternative care guidelines, then we do the assessment of the caregivers.
Okay.
Basically, in the assessment, we see whether the caregivers are competent enough to look after the child.
Okay.
And then whether they are having enough income to provide the care to child.
Okay.
And then one important thing is we also see whether they have any criminal records
Oh, okay.
to ensure that the child being placed in their home are safe and for their continued well-being.
Okay.
So basically, that is the first procedure regarding placing of children in alternative care or kingship care.
Okay.
So if we have to choose between the foster and the kingship care for that particular child who is in difficult circumstances, then first we will see whether that particular child has any relatives or cousins that can provide care to that particular child.
Okay. So that is
So first,
kinship care.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, kingship care. First, we have to see whether there are any relatives that can provide care to the child. So
Okay.
that is basically the kingship care. So only if there is no relatives or if there are no one cousins or anyone from the family who can provide care to the child,
Okay.
then we go for foster.
Foster.
So that is the assessment part that we do before placing the child to the alternative care.
I see. For the foster.
And
Okay. Please go
yeah,
ahead. Please go ahead.
so after placing the child, then there are list of documents that the applicants have to submit. So
Okay.
based on the documents and based on the assessment that took place face to face between the NCWC official and the applicants, and then we have to verify the documents. Basically, the security clearance. There is a list of documents that needs to be submitted by the applicants. So in the documents they have to submit the income statement, like I said before, then the security clearance and uh, details of their household members in their house. So everything that these things are the things that cover under the assessment law.
Okay.
So once the child is being placed under their care, then every year we have to monitor them.
Mhm. For the foster care, is it like is there a limit to how long the kid can be in the foster care?
As such, there is no limit, but when we place them under the kingship or the foster care, we do certify the applicants for a term of 3 years.
Okay,
For
3.
3 years, they can look after the child, and if they want to continue, then they can renew their certificate.
Okay, renewal. I see.
So every after 3 years, we have to keep renewing their certificates. But in Bhutan, most of the applicants they wish to continue providing the foster or the kingship care till the child attains age of
Okay,
maturity.
I see.
So there's no single case where the foster or the kingship came back and said that we do not want to we do not want to continue providing the care for the child. Say
Okay. So for the
so for now, yes.
sorry, for the foster care parents, are they allowed to care for more than 2 children, or like one foster parent like is allowed one child? Is there a rule regarding that?
There's no such rule that one foster parent can look only after one child. See, there's no such rule.
Okay.
But if there are two children who are like siblings,
Yes.
and then in such cases, it's like we have to try to keep them under the same like foster parents as much as possible. It must be placed under the same foster parents if
Okay.
there are two siblings who needs the same care and protection. Otherwise, I think there's no such rule that only one can be looked after, say.
I see. For the foster care, like, is it do you have like a lot of applicants left for like parents, or is like is there a large number of people willing to care for someone's like a child?
Yeah. Uh, uh, if you look at the prospective list of care providers that are maintained with NCWC,
Mhm.
we have around 30 applicants.
The applicants. I see.
But the problem is there's no one single child that's being given up for like to be placed under the alternative care. So
Oh,
mostly ani omeva konagira alu identify baby
right.
applicants come with one identified child that they want to look after. Be.
Oh,
So only like the recent case, the abandoned case, you must be knowing the Babisa case.
all right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was like placed under the foster care by NCWC.
Okay.
So that we did through the list that we maintain at NCWC.
Mm, I
So
see.
first come first basis. whoever is on the top, we contact them, and if they are interested, then we make the arrangements and do the assessment and then place. So that case was done like that.
Okay, can you give me like a number of how many children are currently in foster care? Like?
Mm, I think I don't exactly remember the foster this much foster and this much kingship, but in total, I think there are around 19 of them placed under kingship and foster.
19. Okay. So both of them, so would kinship be more or compared to foster?
Yeah, the foster is more.
Foster care is more.
Foster
Okay.
care, yes, it's more because Kashmir, huh? Just a minute. Yeah, compared to kingship, I think foster is more.
And how do you assess the like? Do you is there like a yearly assessment of how the parents are looking after the child?
We go on. So sad. Oh, sorry, Sonam.
Well, it's okay. Understand. uh, for the foster care, Mike, how do you? Is there like a yearly monitoring? How do you monitor the families?
Yes, for both kingship and foster care, we do the monitoring once in a year.
Okay.
So during that time, we have a format.
Okay.
So we have to see whether we have to see the health, the education, the sleeping habits, eating habits of the child, and
Oh,
also the environment, the family environment of the prospective foster care provider.
okay. So you make like house visits. No?
Yeah. House visit, home visit. That's called.
Okay. From the office, like who is eligible to make these house visits? Do you have like specialized like child protection officers for these house visits, or like is it mainly counselors or like?
No, for now, it's like due to lack of human resources, the legal services is spearheading this alternative care. So we do the processing, then we place, and then we do the monitoring as well for now.
I see.
Everything is done by the legal services officials, like we are two of us for now.
Okay.
So we do the monitoring as well.
I see. Have you seen any like are there any children who cannot avail any of these services though?
Mm, no,
Okay.
because
So
alternative care is basically for those children who cannot be legally adopted. So because to
okay.
legally adopt a child, the child should have the citizenship,
Right.
then this registration, everything has to be in place. So those children who do not have such status, citizenship status, and those who are not registered, those children like abandoned are all this all come under the alternative care basically.
So what happens when they grow up like, for those so does like is there any attempt to give them like citizenship and everything? No? Like does the
Uh,
office
for now, what we advise to the applicants is like for the citizenship, it's a very sensitive issue, like. So we basically ask the applicants to process through KIDU,
Okay.
Office of Representative.
Oh,
So they do process through NCWC to like legally take care of the child, and we do certify them for a period of 3 years and then keep on renewing. At the same time, based on our certification,
mhm.
they process through the KPZMP office under KIDU
Okay.
for the citizenship of the child.
So the children, for the children in kinship and foster care, can you, is there like an age range? Look, currently the 19 children, like what age are they?
Um, mm, age is like mostly below 5.
Below 5. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
mostly
they don't
because
have to worry about school for now, like citizen, like ID card in schools, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
So for the school also, we before in the previous years those children placed under the alternative care did not face any problem while enrolling in school in Mevala.
Okay.
But recently, some issues came to our notice that children placed under alternative care are not being given school admission, say,
I see.
because they do not have the citizenship status.
Okay.
So for that, we are still following up with the Ministry of Education.
Oh, okay. Mm.
Yeah, these are some of the issues relating to alternative care, very sensitive issues.
Right. I wasn't because
Yeah.
like, is there like how do you say like in because NCWC has a guideline for management of like shelters and all. Is there like a guideline for foster care? Like,
Yeah. We have.
okay, I think I'll
It's
refer.
called, just give me a minute. We have this guidelines for the alternative care of children 2017.
2017. So it's a
Yeah.
new one.
Sorry?
It's recent. Then 2017 is recent. So
Yeah. Only because because in the Child Care and Protection Act, uh, this all were not covered in Neva.
okay.
Adoption, it was not covered. So those children who do not have citizenship and everything, they face lots of problem and never. So in order to address that issue, I think NCWC came up with this alternative care of children.
Okay. Is that alternative care of children quite thing? Does it align with the UN's guideline?
Uh, UN's guideline for the alternative care, you mean?
Yes.
I'm not sure now. I'm really sorry because
No problem. Yeah.
because this were already in place when I joined the
Oh,
NCWC.
okay. I see.
I think only if my other colleagues could comment on this.
Okay, well, I'll definitely ask.
I'm
Sonam,
sure it
Hello.
uh, hello. I'm really sorry I couldn't join this early because I think there are some internet issues with
Oh, no
my
problem at
internet.
all. It's like we
So,
can talk
can
with
you just repeat the question what you have asked to Zenjo right now?
okay, so with Altinja, I asked basically mainly about alternative care, foster care and kinship. But
Yeah.
sir, I'll have to ask you about Tingla, shelter, like assessment procedures of like children in the shelter and all. So I think I have a different set of
Uh-huh.
questions for both of you.
No, Tashi, any memo
No, I was just
she was asking whether the guidelines for the alternative care of children adopted by NCWC was in line with the UN guidelines.
uh, I'm not really sure about whether that is in line with UN guideline or not.
Okay.
However, in fact, this guideline is already derived from our Child Care and Protection Act,
Okay.
which is in fact derived from the UNCRC.
Okay.
So basically, this means I think it should be clearly in line with the
Guideline. Okay.
UN documents because the act itself is derived from because some idea were drawn in line with our constitution, the motherly document.
Sorry.
Hello.
Sorry, I couldn't catch you from UNCRC.
Okay, I think the internet issues. What I'm trying to mention is, I think this, in fact, line with the UN alternative care guidelines, but I'm not really sure whether there is UN alternative care guideline or not. However, I think this guideline is already in line with the UN documents, CRC documents, because this guideline has been drawn based from the provision in the Child Care and Protection Act, which clearly mandates about giving the child on the alternative care, which includes the kinship and the foster care. So, and this act is also derived from the drawn based on the UNCRC, and also most importantly our motherly document in line with our Constitution of Kingdom of Bhutan. So therefore, I
Okay.
think it is purely in line with the UN documents also.
Okay. Thank you so much. No. Now it's regarding with Tingla, because I intern at Renew currently, and I've had the opportunity to go up to Kawailingla. So I had the opportunity of talking to the kids there, and I noticed that the children there, some of them have been there for a long term. La. So I wanted to ask, like, what is NCWC's procedure? Like, because I believe they're supposed to be temporary there, but then they're there for a while now. So, what does NCWC do with children like this?
Okay, so now I think when it comes to this, particularly this subject, I think there are certain issues that we need to cater.
Okay.
In fact, yes, of course, is we go by the legal provisions and all those things. If there is no one to provide the care for the children,
Mhm.
then maybe after a certain period, after placing the child in the shelter, then the child should be given on the foster care or kinship care.
Right.
However, if you just look at the issues at the Gowling Center, we have the children who were registered in the census and also some children who were not registered in the census.
Right.
And we also have a children who were not non-Buddhist.
Right.
So firstly, when it comes to the national children who were registered in a census, in fact, we would love to go for with the foster care.
Okay.
However, the first thing that we also have to keep in mind is that the people's forthcoming
All right.
on whether they were really interested to provide a foster care to the children or not.
Okay.
Because if you look at the overall scenario, I think there are just minimal number of people who are willing to provide the foster or kinship care.
Okay.
Rather, if possible, they want to go for the adoption only. But
Okay.
in order to provide the children on adoption, we also have to seek concerns from the parents,
Right.
biological parents, relatives, and all those things, because of which it is one of the challenges in obtaining the consent or the non-objection letter.
Okay.
Secondly, even if the prospective parents wants to provide the foster care, they want child to be registered in a census,
Right.
where most of the children who were in difficult circumstances
Right.
n- don't were not registered in the census, because of which they were not able to, and they were not willing to take the child on the foster care.
Okay.
And then when it comes to those children who were non-national,
Right.
because some of the cases were still ongoing, and because of that provision, we are not able to provide them on foster care.
Okay.
Because once the case is completed, we are focusing on reintegrating them or repatriating them to their families. And in fact, our the provisions of last resort, because the first thing is, if possible, we were trying to reintegrate the children with their family.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is the plans that we have. And in fact, we have already reintegrated some children, even from the Gowling shelter. But
Oh.
in some provision, we are hello.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Right now, I think you just broke off. La. I heard about the
Hello,
reintegration. Yes. Hello. I I
hello,
heard about the reintegration part. La. Hello.
hello.
Hello. Hello.
Reintegration part.
Yes.
We
Okay.
already reintegrated some children, because
Okay.
before we'll be able to follow. I think there are some internet issues.
Yes.
Hello,
Hello.
hello,
Hello. Yes.
hello. Oh, okay. Uh, So basically, in fact, if possible, we were trying to reintegrate the children back with their family. But
Okay.
in case of like other forms of issues related child protection issues like sexual abuse and all those things, if they were the victim of the sexual abuse by their own family members and all those things, then
Okay.
we will not uh, reintegrate the children with that particular perpetrator or their families, but rather we look for other alternative options like reintegrating them with the other relatives and all those things.
Okay. Has
Yeah.
that been successful till date? La?
So you mean the reintegration part?
Yes, la.
Yes, of course. In some cases, it has been successful, but in some cases, it was not really successful because uh, there are some other issues like the members not able to support the kids and all those things, and then also some of the biological parents or relatives wanting the children to be with them only. So
I
because of that, there are certain issues where we were not able to fully reintegrate. But as of now, in most of the cases, we have been able to reintegrate. And still, there are some cases of children who are at shelter, and we are also looking into possibility of how we are going to reintegrate them and whether that kids needs to be reintegrated with their family or with their relatives, or maybe uh, because in order to keep the child on the, because foster care there are only limited number of prospective parents who are willing to take the children on the foster care.
Okay.
If they want to adopt the child, which is also one of the challenges whereby it is difficult to obtain the consent letter or non-objection letter from the biological parents. So
Okay.
that's why we are not really able to give the children on the foster care also.
I see. Could you tell me a bit more about the procedure of placing children into shelter homes, like the assessment? How, like, if you could tell, go through the process.
Uh, I think the assessment part is one of the important aspects or the components in the case management, because everything will be determined through the assessment, and whereby you also have to determine whether the child is in a difficult circumstances or not. What are some of the issues that the child has encountered? What are some of the key interventions required to be provided in the process of case management,
Okay.
and also some of the long-term plans for the kids. So in the assessment part, we cover different issues related uh, treating the hello
Yes. Yes. Hello.
hello.
Hello. Yes.
Oh,
And the
okay.
assessment
So
part. Yes.
the first, okay, this now second part is education aspect component,
Okay.
where we will look from some of the positive strength and weaknesses from the positive, which we will also look into whether child is enrolled in the school or not, whether the parents has supported all the educational requirement or not. And then the third one is regarding the family environment, where we will also look into some of the strength and weaknesses in the families,
Okay.
whether the family has properly taken care of the child properly or not,
Okay.
how whether that the family environment is conducive for the child's development and growth or not.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is we will also look from the community or societal perspective, whereby how society is treating the child.
Okay.
And then the last one is from the economic perspective, where we will look into whether the parents are parents, guardian, or the caregiver is not is able to provide the required economic support to the kids or not.
Okay.
So based on that, we will determine now what are some of the way forward, whether that the child needs to be removed from that particular place and place at some other alternative places, like
Okay.
can be with the interim caregiver or interim guardian, or maybe with a shelter. But usually we keep shelter as a last resort, whereby if no one is able to provide the care to the child, and or maybe if we think that the placing the child in the interim care or with the interim guardian is not really safe, then only we will remove the child and then place at a shelter.
Okay. And for the, is there like after the once the children are put into the shelter, is there like how do you monitor their situation?
Okay, so once the children were placed at a shelter, in fact, we will share the assessment report with that particular shelter who is providing not on all the detailed assessment, but some of the information that they need to know. So we will share that information, and also from the shelter's perspective, they will carry out their own assessment on uh, some of the interventions that they need to provide when the children is placed at a shelter. So
Okay.
we'll follow up constantly on the timely basis, like probably once in a month, or maybe sometimes if urgent, maybe we will follow up twice in a month, and then accordingly till the children will be placed at a shelter till the case is fully resolved. So
Okay.
once it is resolved, uh, then we will look into the possibility of how that kids needs to be reintegrated.
Okay. So during the monitoring, do you monitor just the children or also like their family as well?
No, we will look into both family as well as children, because without being able to monitor, if we don't monitor the family, then we will not be able to reintegrate them.
Right. Uh,
Yeah, that's why we monitor both the family as well as the kids. And sometimes, in some cases, we also conduct a session with both family and kids, whereby we try to build the relationship between these two parties,
okay.
so that it will have a additional it will add on when we were reintegrating the kids.
So for the children without a family, like especially in the shelter, like I guess abandoned children, what are the procedures? What how does NCWC kind of look after their case? Are they still
uh,
for foster care or adoption or
Abandoned children.
yes?
Okay, so I think this part has been already covered in the first question that you have asked. In fact, when it comes to the abandoned children, because I think you have also highlighted that, so the shelter is just for the temporary care,
Right.
or it is to provide the temporary care to the children. In fact, from our perspective, we'll place the children in a temporary care at a shelter,
Right.
but we are also on the first. Hello, hello,
Hello. Yes.
hello, hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
So, uh, once the children were placed at a shelter, especially in terms of the when it comes to the abandoned children, we will look into and the possibility of giving the children onto the foster care,
Right.
or else on the kinship care. However, just as what I have mentioned earlier, there are only limited number of people who
Right.
were willing to provide the foster care, because if they want to take the child on the adoption, whereby
Right.
in the cases of the abandoned, we are not able to give the children on the adoption because there is issues related to census and all those things.
Okay.
Because of that, we will not able to give on the adoption. So rather, we look into the possibility for giving the child on the foster care. But there are only limited number of people who are willing to take the children on the foster care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So
So,
like for some of the children at Gawailing, noticed that like some of them have been there for like more than 5 years, some of them even till 9 years. Like, what is there anything being done to remove them, or like how do you go on about? Because they're supposed to be in temporary care, but like they have kind of overstayed, like they've been in shelter for so long. So, does like NCWC look into these cases as well?
uh, as per my knowledge, I think we don't have much kids who have been there for more than 5 years. I think the highest number of years that they have been there is just 3 or 4 years. But that also, we are looking into the possibility for reintegrating them. But just considering the family environment and all those things, we are not able to fully reintegrate them.
Okay.
Yeah. And we are also looking into the possibility of building or strengthening the livelihood of their family so that we will be able to reintegrate them successfully.
Okay. Like you mentioned that like the longest they have been there for 3 years, but according to one like the shelter head
Okay.
mentioned in our interview that some of them have been there for like 5 to like like longer than that,
Uh,
like, since the establishment of the shelter.
uh, because I'm not sure about it because as far as I know, since I joined NCWC,
Okay.
I'm because there are only 1 or 2 children who had been there for maximum of 4 years,
Oh,
and apart from that, I'm not sure about whether there are children who had been placed there earlier or not.
okay.
Sonam,
Yes.
just to add on what Tashi said
Okay.
regarding the children who have been in the shelter homes for so long,
Yes.
I remember NCWC and Renew having a discussion on this particular thing issue.
Oh,
Uh, NCWC requested Renew to submit the list of children
okay.
who have been there for so long,
Right.
and now there's no option other than to place them under the foster care, basically, because they do not have any relatives or anyone to look after them.
Right.
So for that, NCWC requested Renew to submit a list of children who can be placed under foster care. And at NCWC, we have number of applications, number of applicants who are interested to provide care for children.
Okay.
So there was some discussion going on between Renew and NCWC regarding those children who have been there for so long.
Right.
But
Okay.
I think somewhere it got lost.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, there was also that discussion.
Oh, okay. Because I believe like some of them are quite like I was wondering like what age is like what age do foster parents actually look to like choose to adopt like because sometimes
Um,
they have a preference. I believe.
yeah, they have different preferences. Some go for boy, like gender preferences also,
Right.
and
Oh,
then age also. Mostly they go for uh, like infant only, if possible.
okay. I see.
So
So
they're like,
the older you get, the less you become eligible. Kind of like
yes, yes, yeah.
okay. Mm, I see.
Because the care providers also do not want to let the child know that they are not their real parents or
Right.
thing. But
I see. Has there been any foster care that like ended up being in adoption as well?
oh yes, yes, there have been. I remember one case. Uh, that is also like it's not the issue of abandoned children or anything.
Okay.
It was like because the prospective foster parents were not eligible for adoption because of their age,
I see.
because the adopt prospective foster parents were like they have not attained the age of 30 years, which is required by the Adoption Act, to be at least 30 years to legally adopt a child.
Oh, okay.
So for that, we have placed the child under their care for like foster care
Mhm.
till they attain the age of 30 years. So when they attained the age of 30 years, they were eligible for the adoption of the child.
I see.
So from the foster care, they have legally adopted the child. There has been one case.
Oh, okay. So for foster care, like the rules are a bit different from like when it comes to adoption.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I see. And I guess yeah, this is all the questions I had for both of you. Um, if I do have other questions, I would definitely. Would it be okay if I contact you again?
Yeah, sure. Would love to. I don't know how we have been able to provide you the required information.
Cause like this is a lot of information for me. Cause I was quite aware of the shelter, but like when it comes to foster care, no, I wasn't really sure how it worked in Bhutan, and like because is kinship care like actually formal in Bhutan? Cause like in other South Asian countries, like kinship care is usually like informal and not recognized by the government. So for the kinship care, is it like formally done?
Yes, it's formally done. Both foster and kingship, they are as per like she mentioned, it's derived from our act.
Right.
So basically, the Child Care and Protection Act, Chapter 10, deals with the alternative care.
Right.
So based on that, we have drawn the alternate guidelines also.
Okay.
So if you, Sona, for your information, if you go through the guidelines for the alternative care 2017, which is on our website, I think you will get a lot of information from there also.
All right. We'll
How
definitely.
we process, what are the assessment procedures, and how we monitor and everything.
Okay. Right. Is there if it's possible, could I get like is there like a format like as you mentioned like the assessment procedures for
Yeah.
would it be
Yeah, there's a format.
possible to get my hands on it like the template of like the procedure like for the shelter placements like removal like the assessment procedure like education economic and all that?
Okay, I don't think it will be a problem to share the format with you. What do you think, Tashi? Is Tashi online?
Oh, hey.
I think it's okay, man.
Nimbe?
Ani,
It's
format, I think if you were able to go through the guidelines, I think it is already attached as an annexure behind the guideline.
oh okay.
Mena Otinjo.
For both the thing place removal and
Shelter gidi me bon Tashi.
Shelter gi guideline gidi ya.
Oh, yiga chingi shelter gina.
Shelter gidi bende mi aninalu because it is a component of the case management game beba. But gender-based violence ki thakalo hibe bodalu di yu analu ra. It's already uploaded in our website.
okay.
Okay, so now I think guidelines for the alternative care of children 2017 got the format attached in it only.
Oh, okay, perfect. And
Yeah,
for
it's on the website. You can just go through it. The formats are all there,
and for
both in Songkla as well as English. The letter of certification, how we certify and how we monitor, how we assess, everything is given. The format is attached there only.
okay. And could I get a clear picture of like the number of children in like kinship care and foster care, like if you don't mind?
Oh, okay. Supposed to give you. There are 10 foster that has been processed till now. Not 10, it's 11.
11.
11 foster and 6 kinship.
6 kinship. So like
Yes.
in what would be the estimate number of like child removal of children like cases sorry children in different like difficult circumstances who have to be like removed from there? Is there like a data on that like
I think we have, but I don't remember exactly how much children. Do you want it on the yearly basis or maybe just an aggregate of all?
yearly basis and like I'll try to compile the data like after that so if possible like probably like within this 10 years if there was any.
I think I also have to discuss with the officiating director on it because since when it comes to the data,
Yes.
we have to seek permission from the there itself only.
Okay.
So maybe we'll discuss and then look into. But right now, I don't exactly remember how much we have removed.
Okay. And would it be like is there also like a number on how many kids have been reintegrated back to their like family in
Yeah, I think we will be able to get it.
Okay.
So maybe I will discuss and then get back to you.
All right, then that'd be perfect. I think yeah, that's all the data I currently need for now. Is there like a whole again? I am aware of like Gawiling's number of children in Gawiling, but I'm not aware of like Nashin Lumpin's number. So does NCWC have like all the number of the children in shelters or?
Uh, the one thing is that some of the children who were already placed in the shelter, like in the Gaoling or Najilamtin, it is not within our knowledge because sometimes we are not aware of who are being placed at a Gaoling or in the shelter.
Oh, so I thought like all the children that are placed in Gawiling had to come through NCWC first.
No, 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 no. Because sometimes they were had been already removed. Now I think, but earlier I think sometimes the children were removed without our knowledge also. Yeah, that's why we are not able to have a clear number of how many children were had been removed, how many children had been placed in a shelter. Apart from the number of the children that the NCWC particularly has removed and placed, we don't have a knowledge on other children who were being removed and placed by the other agencies.
Okay, like can in that case, does NCWC do anything on that situation? No, because is NCW because
Yeah,
NCWC is the only competent authority, I believe, to.
yeah, I think the censure has already highlighted on it because there are different sources where people remove and place the children. Sometimes they were being the court ordered the shelter to keep the children at the shelter. Sometimes it is being referred by the police, whereby in the cases of emergency they remove the kids and then place with the shelter. But that happens all because in the earlier time when the people were not really aware of the laws and the legislation and even the guideline. But now I think everything is coming through the NCWC.
Oh, I see. So I think
Mm,
so. There are
uh,
children who have been in shelter before, without NCWC's thing. Oh, alright.
yeah, I think in the Renew Shelter also there are some kids or children who were placed there without our knowledge because in some cases like gender-based violence, since they will be focusing more on the gender-based violence and all those things, so some of the kids were placed there and we are not really aware of it.
Oh,
I think
But
that's why NCWC requested the list of children, the
yeah,
number of children who are there in shelter, so that we can do the necessary thing from our side, like reintegrating or placing them under foster or anything.
oh, okay. Mm. Will you guys be following up after this?
I think we should.
I see. Um, Also, how about Najan Lumpton? I like is NCWC aware of the number of children in Najan Lumpton?
uh, I think it's around 10 or 11 children.
Okay, and they all
But
come from NCWC.
no, not all. I think there are also few children
Mhm.
who were being placed there by Royal Bhutan Police
Okay,
and some from the other agencies.
I see. When you mention other agencies, like, could you give me an example? Because, like, with NCWC and RBP, I understand like they have the authority, but like, what other agencies?
Uh, in some cases, like even the uh, hospitals, so they refer the cases to RBP, and even some they also have their own volunteer officers in the Dzongkhaks.
All right, the CBS is like for.
Yeah. No, no, not CBSs. They have their own officials like case management officers in Dzongkhaks, whereby they refer the cases to National Langtin.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see.
So And sometimes I think they have also identified few childrens, maybe 2 or 3 childrens, and they, considering the family environment and all those things, they have directly placed them in the shelter. So
Okay.
that happened all because of because they were not really aware of the legislation and then also the processes. But now I think everything is moving well, and
Okay.
we have already requested every all the agencies to provide the numbers
Okay.
on how many children were there at the shelters, and
Mm.
also the details of the parents or guardian.
Oh, I see. For the thing, what I was wondering, what is the actual difference between like Gawiling and Najin? Although I do understand that Najin is mainly for children in like conflict with the law. Like, is it
Uh,
clear cut? Like, are they only allowed to accept children like in conflict with the law, or are there also children in difficult circumstances at Najin?
no, since again, when we talk about the children in difficult circumstances and children in conflict with law, in fact, Gowling has been also catering the services to the children in difficult circumstances,
Okay.
but they had been focusing more on the gender-based violence issues.
Oh, okay.
So, because some of the children were not, who were difficult circumstances, did not necessarily be the survivors of gender-based violence. So that's why sometimes we had been often placing the children within National as they were catering the services to children in conflict with law as well as children in difficult circumstances.
Okay. So for like Gawiling, they take mainly cases based on the gender-based violence. Huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think, but at the same time, just because of the lack of services in our country, sometimes we had to request them to keep those, even if they were in the difficult circumstances,
Okay.
especially like in the emergency cases and all those things.
I see. Does
But
like NCWC also monitor the number of children that are placed in the shelter? Like, because like in other countries, like I believe like they aim for like small scale, short term like shelters for children. And like in does like NCWC have any mandate procedure like let's say framework that says like oh like no shelter the shelter shouldn't have more than this many children or like any guidelines like that?
no, I think there isn't any limit on the number of children in the shelter, but we have a guideline whereby shelter will be accredited if they fulfill the set standards or the criteria in the guideline. We
Oh,
have a shelter management accreditation of shelter management guideline, guideline for management of shelter services. So I think there are two guidelines.
okay. Two guidelines. Is there like I'm not sure because I was following very closely with there is this whole movement of like deinstitutionalizing like shelter residential cares and like institutional cares of children in like other countries, and like in the case of Bhutan, like what do you think, do you think like shelters shouldn't like children shouldn't be in shelters, or like should you close down shelters, like what is the move that like the country's aiming for?
I think, as you have mentioned, it would be nice if we don't have shelter. But
Oh,
on the other hand, this has been some of the basic needs in the society, I think,
okay.
because in some cases, every children's that we cases related to children that we receive cannot be given on the foster or alternative care.
Okay.
Sometimes in the emergency cases also we might require the shelter services, and sometimes in some cases like till the case is being closed they need shelter services. So therefore I think totally shutting down of all the shelter services is a wise idea. Rather I think uh, it is important to have shelter services, because if there isn't any shelter services, then we will not be able to provide the services. And it is the one of the integral and important services when it comes to the child protection issues.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. No. I had a final question, but now like um what do you personally think of the shelter standards right now, like the services provided by the shelter, education and like health facilities, psychosocial support. Is there like, do you feel like there is room for improvement? And if you think there is, like, where do you think there should be improvement?
Yes, yes, of course, because right now it is just an initial part.
Okay.
And in fact, every shelter service provider had been doing their best to make sure that the children receive the best care and support from the shelter. However, just because of some constraints like the financial constraints,
Right.
and then also some human resources constraints, were not able to provide the full support as per our existing criteria. But I think they are doing well, and still there are some room for the improvement.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, this shelter services should be the shelter should be separately as a one agency, not under the case management or whatever.
Right.
But I think this should be like, even after the one uh, under one agency also, it should be as a one department or division,
Oh, okay.
so that they don't have to look after everything, rather they can just focus on within their shelter.
I see. Hopefully that can be future recommendations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sonam,
Yes.
just to add on what Tashi said,
Yes.
with regard to the standards of the shelter homes,
Yes.
if you look at the guidelines for the accreditation of shelter homes that provide services to women and children in difficult circumstances, there are many standards, like with regard to the room structure, the human resources that are required, the services that are required by the shelter services. So if we go by that standards that are provided in the guidelines,
Right.
both Najin Lamden as well as Gawaling Shelter Home, they do not qualify. If you go by the standards that is provided in the guidelines and the thing.
Right.
But we have been following up with Renew and Najin Lamden about the accreditation.
Okay.
NCWC as the competent authority have to accredit their services
Right.
in Mewala. So if you go by the standards that is being provided, they do not fulfill much. Lah.
Oh, okay. So they're not accredited yet.
No, they are not accredited yet. We are in the process of accrediting them.
I see.
So as when it comes to Najin Lamden, they have submitted all the required documents, and we have also conducted the physical verification of the shelter, but they were not able to produce some important documents.
Oh, okay.
So that's why they are not accredited yet. As for the Renew, they submitted the application, but not the documents yet.
Oh, I see. So because this accreditation guideline came like fairly later, is that
Mhm.
the reason why like it's taking time for them to get accredited, or is, when did it actually start? Like was it like put in like use? Like when did Najanampan and Renew actually start?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh,
No.
sorry. I was wondering like when did this actually, like when did Renew and Najanampan actually like headed towards this accreditation?
Uh, I think after the guidelines for the service provider and the guidelines for the accreditation of shelter homes came into place.
Oh, okay.
After that, because before that there were no clear procedures as to how we have to accredit. Only the act says that service competent authority must uh, accredit the service providers providing services for women and children, but there were no procedures as such and the standards and everything.
Right.
So before NSWC had to come up with the thing, guidelines and the procedures.
Oh,
And only then we have sensitized the service providers regarding these guidelines
mhm.
and the requirement as per the act. And then they were asked to apply and for the accreditation.
has there been any shelter that actually passed? Like,
No, not yet.
so
NCWC for now only considers Najin Namtin and Renew to be accredited because they are the two CSOs that are providing services to women and children for now.
oh, okay.
So we are requesting and asking them for now.
How about like I'm not sure if Haksam and all are considered shelters as well, and does that like is the NCWC like does it NCWC have any say in their like thing?
Uh, for Laksam, I think initially in the discussion, Laksam was also there for the accreditation.
Okay.
But later we only considered Renew and Najin Namdin. But I think in future, if Najin Namdin and Renew's accreditation gets successful and everything gets into place, then I think these things will follow.
Okay. So what are the requirements to be considered like a shelter that's up for accreditation? Like how did Najinamtan and I think Gawaling pass? Is it just based on the fact that they provide services to women and children?
Yeah, for now, I think that was the only basis
Oh, okay, NCW. So NCW because
because
NCW is
yeah,
mainly
yeah,
concerned with.
and NCWC was also like was uh, uh, was thinking to like if they submit the required documents, the NCWC were in like favor of accrediting them,
Oh, okay. I see.
and the standards that are mentioned should be like when we renew their thing
Right.
certificate, we will look into it. Say
Oh, okay.
that was the consideration with regard to renew and Najin Lamten.
I see. I had no idea that they had yet to be accredited. I thought they had already like passed that. So
No, no, not yet.
thank you so much for the information.
Okay, welcome.
So like what if it's not accredited, like is there any repercussions like that they're not allowed to operate and
Not for now.
okay.
Tashi,
Maybe
you have anything to add on this accreditation? Yeah. Iga.
Mhm. Mm, I guess he doesn't have anything to add. Okay, I can always ask it on the thing. I'll ask on the WhatsApp in case if I think. But I guess that's all from my side.
Okay, so now.
Thank you so much for letting me interview on a short notice. So, um, if I would it be okay if I like reach out to you if I needed any more information?
Okay, sure.
Would it
There's
be
also this under the publications at the website, guidelines for accreditation and management of shelter homes for women and children in difficult circumstances. If you can go through this, I think you will also get the what are the things that we look into when we accredit.
Yes, I actually saw that guideline and then I was like, okay, NCWC has a clear like thing framework for shelters, but I think I didn't check the alternative like care, so I wasn't aware of
Okay,
the foster care.
okay, so now.
But would it be okay if I actually added the number of foster care and kinship numbers in my research? No?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think it should be okay.
All right, thank you so much. And for the other data and the templates and all, I will email. I will send a formal email to thing Miss Thing Sir.
Tashi.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's when it comes to cases, I think it should go officially.
Okay. Thank you so much. And is there any
Okay, you're welcome, Sanam.
is there any like comments or anything extra that you would like to add regarding child care?
No, I think you covered almost all the important aspects.
Okay. And Sir Tashi is
He already offline?
uh his mic's on, so I'm guessing.
Tashila.
Uh,
Oh,
no, I think everything has been covered. So maybe if you have any further queries, then maybe you can just drop message to us. So
yes.
accordingly, we will respond. But as of now, I think everything has been covered.
Okay, sir, I'll send you a formal email requesting for the the data on the number of children, and also for the
Okay.
reintegrated number of children, and as well as probably the template for the assessment case management.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much for all your
Yeah.
help.
Okay.
This
Okay.
has been really helpful for, and I will definitely be sure to email a copy of my thesis if it gets completed.
Okay, all
Okay.
the best, Sanam.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you.
Okay.